Hey, how you doing? This is Johnny from Talking with Rich, and I have the distinct pleasure today to speak to one of my good friends, Lane Belone. He's going to talk to us today about a project that he's working on that assists people with that have an idea. And a lot of you reached out to me about this. You guys have an idea, but you don't know exactly how to make that idea a reality. And so that's exactly what Lane does. Good morning, Lane. If you wouldn't mind telling everybody that doesn't know you about yourself.
Yeah, thanks, brother, for having me. It's
No, my pleasure.
been great to connect and share some stories.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit about me for those that don't know. I spent almost 12 years in the military, much of it as a Green Beret. I did different types of missions and deployments and learned a lot about myself while I was in the military. And then in 2017, I ended up getting out and started my entrepreneur journey down in Panama, the country of Panama, with my
Mhm.
wife. We were living down there for a little while and really just been following the path ever since, diving into crypto, into NFTs, into spirituality, sovereignty, just a whole bunch of fun stuff. And over the
Mhm.
past several years, I've really just felt into what I really want, how I want to help people, and what I've really been kind of playing around with is this mastering the game within the game, and just really focusing on intrinsic joy, joyful creation within myself, and then as I move about life and interact and relate with others in this infinite game that we're playing here on Earth, I'm just playing it by ear,
Yeah.
following the path. So, yeah, I mean, we can go into any details or anything like that, but I'd say that's probably a good introduction overview of yeah.
What you're doing at seven. Yeah, no, we I had the opportunity to talk a little bit with Lane last week, and I told him my story of when I got real sick and saw a donkey telling me about universal string theory. And you know, one of the interesting things about the universe is once you actually start doing something, instead of just having as an idea in your head, but you actually start either putting money or effort or energy or anything into it, the next thing provides itself to you, right? So like if you're doing a project, you know, construction on a house and you don't have any tools, you spend a little bit of money for a hammer and then all of a sudden the tool belt shows up. I mean, that's kind of the way the universe works. Has that been your experience as well?
Yeah, and I've definitely had to learn it the hard way many times. I've been pretty hard headed with certain things, and yeah, exactly how you described. It's like you have an idea wherever it's coming from, this creative energy that's flowing through you, and you're like, oh, this is something that I really feel like I want to explore. I'm curious
Hmm.
about. I want to take action, and then it's like life gives you just enough to like, okay, what's the first step? Okay, you take the first step,
Yeah.
and then like you were saying, the next step presents itself as
Hmm.
long as you're continuing to move your feet forward. And sometimes, we shuffle left and right and we're not moving entirely forward. Sometimes we're taking a couple steps back
Yeah.
and or seemingly steps back, and we're able to really, oh, okay, this is what
Hmm.
life is trying to guide me towards an easier path. If I take 7 steps back and like, oh, there's a beautiful clearing here. There's a golden path that's like presented right in front of me, but I was
Yeah.
too blind because I was just so focused on chopping down the jungle,
Exactly.
stuff and everything. So
Doing our own way. Yeah, exactly.
totally, yeah.
Yeah, well, that was it. We talked about my rule of never saying no, because you don't know the opportunities that are going to be, just basically lopped off that tree of life that is basically already laid out. You just have a choice, as a sovereign person, as a creator, we have the choice to either say, yeah, let's give it a shot, or give reasons why you can't. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough time in the day. I work all day long. How do I have time to put into my project and blah blah blah. I mean, it's so easy to make a billion excuses, but sometimes it's freeing but scary to say yes and just kind of move forward and an opportunity presents itself. The ideas, so how, if you could take us through a process kind of, and I'm sure that it's different for each person that you work with, but let's say that somebody comes to you and say, Lane, I have this idea for I want to create a marketing agency, and you know, what is it that kind of take us through the step by step that you would take that person through to help them get that idea out of their head and begin to develop it and create it create it as a reality in their life.
Yeah, the first thing is really exploring, like, why is this an important idea for them? Like, why
Hmm.
did it hit them in the heartstrings? Why does it feel like there's a visceral need to take action? And so
Hmm.
start exploring that and seeing what's underneath it, what's behind it, what are the intentions that you're like, oh, okay, if I create a marketing agency or if I create a nonprofit, like, why do I want to do this?
Hmm.
What is the kind of deeper purpose? And so when we start to explore that, we start to understand ourselves better, and we
Yeah.
realize that the project that we're working on, the thing that we want to build or create, has deep meaning for us and why we're here on this planet. And it could only be a small chapter in your life, but it's an important one.
Hmm.
So yeah. So first, kind of having that inquiry of why we want to do this, and then start talking about what the obstacles are in front of your next step. And so a
Hmm.
lot of people have different types of challenges, blocks, resistances. And
Yeah.
so universally, it's like, okay, what's holding you back? Why haven't, if you've had this idea for 4 years or 4 months and you're hesitant, you're not wanting to take action, like what's behind that? What's the
Right.
resistance? And so exploring that, and it's like that's the thing that life has given you to navigate through. And
Hmm.
so if we're able to take a step back and look at what we have right in front of us in this present moment, like, okay, I got a really cool idea and I got some resistance. Okay, that's what I got. Let me see
Yeah.
how I can work with that. And so usually bringing that awareness allows for the dissolving of the resistance, because we become aware of, okay, that's why I'm resisting. Okay, well,
Hmm.
actually it's not that big of a deal. Or, if I have a collaborator or a guide or somebody supporting me with accountability, um, you know, different types of strategies or ways in which to be more creative or productive, it's like, okay, the steps that I'm taking each way is easier and easier because I feel like
Yeah.
I'm supported, I'm not alone, and I'm seeing the results, or at least the momentum being built each
Hmm.
day, each week.
Yeah, and that's a big thing is the accountability. Sometimes it's nice to have an outside set of eyes, on it with kind of a list of okay, hit. It's funny as you're telling me these things. It reminds me of building mission plans. I mean, like, do you feel like maybe that training in your life really kind of makes you suited for helping people? And because that's exactly what we would do is we would look at what are our mission, what is our mission requirements, and then we would look at what are the things that are going to keep us from being able to accomplish our mission requirement. So you would try to create a plan to maneuver around those things. Is that kind of the way that you know maybe a little bit more obviously different? You're not treating them like a drill instructor or a team leader or whatever, but are you using maybe some of those training for this type of project?
Yeah, I think that time period in my life helped me create this kind of innate ability to strategize and to plan. And
Yeah.
what I've been actually working on, the past 7 years since I've gotten out, is to unravel some of that, like
Hmm.
rigidity and
Yeah.
acting out of fear, and approaching planning and strategy in a more playful, flowing way.
Yeah.
So that's the inner work that I've been doing. But yes, I'm taking a lot of the frameworks and how to take a look at the whole picture and
Hmm.
understand where we're heading, not necessarily the outcome, but more of the trajectory of
Right.
the direction of what we're heading, and then being present every step of the way. So that way, when we encounter awesome things, we can celebrate.
Hmm.
When we encounter challenges, we can really understand, like, why is this a challenge? What can I learn
Right.
from it? How can this challenge propel me to the next level, to the next thing that I'm creating, or the next evolution of this project? And
Hmm.
so, yeah, I definitely take, that stuff. And then, the spiritual journey that I've been on for the past 6, 7 years, I'm embedding those spiritual principles,
Yeah.
flowing with life, similar to the Tao, the middle
Hmm.
way, and not being too extreme on this side, not being too extreme on that side of the spectrum,
Yeah, exactly.
and really finding that harmony or that balance in the middle, and knowing
Hmm.
that it always shifts, it's always moving, and it's about being present to where, okay, what's showing up in my life this week? Okay, it's this
Hmm.
awesome thing and this challenging thing and everything in between, but if I'm present with it, then I can do something about it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, no, you mentioned something that's very interesting. That you were talking about the rigidity, and as a project, I create projects, I help people with projects and things like that. And sometimes it's that whole, as a leader, you were required to try and take control of every situation. Like it was kind of like step one, take control of the situation, and you can't do that sometimes. I mean, especially with creatives, when you're working with other creatives and stuff like that, have never had any experience in any sort of, you know, uh, military or whatever, any structure. They really struggle with that. And so how do you overcome that obstacle? Let's just say somebody is super, super creative. They're an amazing artist, but they really have hard time with, you know, being putting attention to create seeing that project, something that should only take a month to create ends up taking a year because they can't seem to focus. How do you coach somebody in that kind of a situation?
Yeah,
Because
so through
there's a
my
lot of us.
Yeah, so through my own experience of exploring a whole bunch of structure and
Hmm.
not enough structure,
Yeah.
I've explored both sides of that. And so whenever I'm talking with somebody, I'm just loosely identifying where do they fall on this spectrum of, are they entirely creative and they have no boundaries
Hmm.
and no structure? Okay, well
Yeah.
then I can bring a little bit of structure to the table, so that way, it's like the visual that I usually kind of like think about in my mind is like this beautiful museum that
Hmm.
has these beautiful intrinsic pillars, and it's broken up into different rooms. And so if we went into a museum and everything was scattered and there was no organization, it would be hard to explore, because it'd be like nothing that our
Yeah.
mind can really organize or really dial into, because it's so scattered,
Hmm.
it's so free flowing, and anything goes. But then whenever you have enough structure to where each room is a time period, each room is a type of art, each room is a type
Yeah.
of person that created some stuff or whatever, we have that a little bit of structure, and it's, for me, it's finding that sweet spot, so that way whenever you're moving through the museum, you're
Hmm.
able to like really dive into the textures and the
Yeah.
intricacies of all these different things that you want to explore. And then whenever you and what it really creates is that you have this deep trust in a path,
Yeah.
and so like you're able, because you feel like you're safe in this container of structure, just enough structure, you're able to freely dance and move about in the different rooms, in between the
Hmm.
columns of support, for the building. And so that's
Yeah.
kind of how I visualize it. Is it okay? Somebody that has too many walls and too much structure and too many pillars, you can't even like, you can't freely
Can't
dance, you
move.
can't freely
Yeah.
move, you couldn't play a game of like, football, basketball, soccer, or whatever. But
Hmm.
if you don't have, if it's just a wide open space and there's nothing that's structurizing or organizing it, and it's like, okay, well, let's find what the perfect sweet spot is for that person, at least for
Hmm.
this project, and knowing that it
That's a
always
big
changes.
and that's a big task, I mean, that, then you got to present them with, hey man, I think you may be a little too loose in your, and so yeah, I think that's a huge first step, is okay, determining how that person creates, and what has not worked in the past, and how can we improve it to help them be successful. What is another big hurdle do you see with a lot of people that you've worked with, that are trying to create something other than, workflow and creating hit times and things like that? What are some of the other areas that you see people struggle with, especially creatives?
Yeah, I think a lot of people have a hard time sometimes navigating uncertainty. And
Hmm.
so being able to have an idea and feel it in your heart, you're like, man, I really want to take action. But there's a hesitancy. There's a
Mhm.
fear of failure. There's
Yeah.
this like, oh man, like if I take this step, if I take this action and it doesn't turn out to be what I think it's going to be, like, man, I'm going to judge myself hard. I'm going to call myself a failure. All
Mhm.
these like things. So it's a lot of it's the mental game. What are
Yeah.
the thoughts that come up whenever we're in that time period of I have an idea, but I
Mhm.
haven't taken like a decisive action, or I haven't initiated the project, formally or
Right.
concretely, And so I think navigating that kind of mindset, and again, that's kind of very similar to the resistance.
Mhm.
What is the resistance coming up, with taking this, and so, a lot of the times, being able to spark courage,
Yeah.
in spite of the uncertainty, in spite of the fear that I'm feeling in my body right now, like,
Mhm.
okay, can I have the courage? And this is where I think, military experience can really
Yeah, I agree.
support in that,
100%.
especially, people that feel like this is a really meaningful thing. It's like I'm putting
Mhm.
my heart on the line. I'm putting my
Yeah.
reputation on the line by doing this thing that's outside of my comfort zone. And
Mhm.
so being able to have a collaborator, a person of support, a guide, whatever you want to call it, that says, hey, look, we're going to take this path together for a little while.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be here to get you out of your own head, to help you take the step whenever you feel like you don't feel like you have the courage or the energy to do it. And I'm not
Mhm.
going to push you hard, but I'm also going to remind you of your own strength and your innate talents and gifts that you
Yeah.
bring into the world. So yeah, so I mean that's, a few of the other
Fear of
ones.
failure, man. Fear of failure is a huge thing. And any of the training I remember, it was always they would tell you, okay, this many people are here. You're look around you. This many people are gonna be gone by the time this training is over, you know? And it was almost kind of like from day one, they would tell you, okay, this is not gonna be easy. You know, but when you get done, you're going to be such a group of small individuals that have actually done this. And so when you leave, most of the trainings that the military puts you through, you really feel like a huge sense of accomplishment, you know? And I don't know, there's very few people that I've met that go into all the training with just 100% confidence. You know, it always seems like they kind of come into it with this, well, I hope I can do this, you know, or I kind of have a fear of heights, or you know, I don't know. Like you name it. Everybody kind of walks into things with the reasons that a fear that they'll fail, you know. And I think with artists, when you kind of translate that over into artists, I mean, failure for them is that they've put all this time, this effort, this you know, energy, money into something, and then they send it out and nobody's interested in it. You know, that's their fear. You know, or you create a business and you've bought all the chairs, the tables, you've got all the cooking equipment, and your fear is that nobody's actually going to show up, you know. So I mean, like I feel like it would be super helpful to have somebody like you on their side that's gone through that many times and can sit there and kind of do a lot of encouragement for somebody that just kind of struggles with the fear of failure. So like that's those are two huge things, you know. I mean, for any project, I believe when you're starting out is to overcome those things, and that's pretty cool that you do that for individuals. What is some have you I know you haven't been doing it so long, but you had mentioned something about the 501(c)s, the nonprofit organizations, and we had talked a little bit. How does that translate to that? I mean, do people just kind of come to you with an idea and be like, "Hey, I want to help this type of people. How do I do it? And how do I build a plan to do that?" Is that kind of the way that they proceed? Because there's actually a couple of people that are really diving into that in the crypto space that I follow. And so I wanted to maybe if you could talk a little bit about how you're helping that particular group. You don't need to go into specifics, but how you're helping them develop a plan for their project.
Yeah. So this particular case, I'll speak in more generalities, but
Sure.
he's had this idea for 4 to 6 years, and
Hmm.
throughout those years he's had different things that he's experimented with,
Okay.
and so primarily three different ideas. And so what we're doing now, especially in this first phase, is we're exploring and curious about how can we meld or put all of these things under one umbrella. And what
Hmm.
we're navigating through is the what is the highest ideal of what we're trying to create here. So that
Okay.
way that these different pillars of action or different things or aspects of the nonprofit, they can look up to this highest ideal and say, yeah, that's what we're accomplishing, or that's our
Hmm.
trajectory. And so really understanding like what's underneath all of the reasons why we're wanting to do this, the
Hmm.
intentions, the ideas, and really unfolding some stories, really dissecting some values, articulating vision and mission. And
Hmm.
really, this first phase is about getting the essence of what you're really trying to create. And so
Right.
before we look at, nonprofits or even other types of vehicles of organization, whether it be business or social entrepreneurship or, all these different ways in which we can now use as a vehicle for this essence or this idea that we have. And
Hmm.
so so that process is also going to inform us on how to you know actually action some of this stuff, like based on the parameters of nonprofits,
Hmm.
how it's structured, what are all the different details that are going to, whether they're going to help us or sometimes limit us.
Yeah.
But not that limitations are bad. We can be creative with limitations and allow them to propel us to the things that we want to do.
Hmm.
So really focusing on those two things, and then through the process of each week, it's about understanding your process of creation.
Right.
And so like really like it doesn't have to be this serious thing, but loosely contemplating and talking about what was challenging this week, what felt
Yeah.
really really good, how can we do more of that, how can
Hmm.
you really tap into your own strengths and gifts and lean into that more, and then find the complementary people to where their strengths and gifts are different than what you're providing, or bringing to the table. And so
Yeah.
just kind of exploring your own process of creation. So through this one single project, it becomes much more clear about how you approach creation.
Hmm.
And with sovereign creation, it's about being able to take creations that you built that lead to you to more sovereignty for you and your family. And
Sure.
so being able to understand that process, and and you kind of talking about it before, like what if it fails, or
Hmm.
what if people don't like it, and so that
Yep.
one of the inner games that that we look at as far as mindset wise is like, how can we have this process of creation bring me intrinsic joy,
Yeah.
to where I don't need anybody else's approval. I don't need to share this with
Exactly.
anybody else, that
Yeah.
I am within my own self. Like if I'm
Hmm.
out in the woods, in a cabin, and I create this thing, it's like I feel so good about that because it's, for whatever reason, it's bringing me intrinsic joy. And there's, that's a
Yeah.
really deep topic, but and this is also in alignment with flow states and flow science. And
Hmm.
so being able to understand that aspect of ourselves, so then whenever we are intrinsically joyful, we don't need anybody else
Yeah.
to validate our creations. Then whenever we bring it to the world and say, hey, I built this thing for me, but it's also, I think it could be a really beautiful thing for other people,
Other
and
people.
the right people are going to be like, that's awesome.
I love that.
I've
Yeah.
been, I've
No,
been
that
looking for that. Yeah.
exactly. No, I talk about this a lot to the Toco Music Group. Um, we there a lot of times people like to put parameters on things right off the bat, right? Especially with crypto, they're trying to, okay, it needs to be like this, and these things need to be there so you can categorize these types of things. And sometimes with creation and creating art and creating different types of forms of art, sometimes the process is the only limitation, and it should be like that. So like for me with Rich Gwynn, I love Rich Gwynn. Like, even if zero other people in the world found any joy or had any interest in Rich Gwynn, I'm still going to create it because I love creating my characters and I love creating the accessories that he has. And so like the thing that I did, I gave away the first set of accessories because it was very exciting for me to know that Rich Gwynn now wasn't just on my computer, but he was in people's wallets all over the world. And people, in Nigeria and in Canada and Croatia and Scotland. And so like for me, that was the happiness of that. And it is one thing, because like as an artist, you spend a lot of money, as you're developing these things, whether that be digital art, traditional mediums of art. You spend a lot of money, right? Especially in the music, if you're trying to create like digital masters and things like that, it gets really, really expensive. And so with most artists, though, it's just kind of the normal process. And you have to go, okay, hey, you do need to charge money for this. I mean, like when we created the music for music NFTs for Hella, our first artist in Toko Music, um, we had to kind of convince her, hey, people are going to pay money for this, so you need to give us a, realistic, what do you want to try and make for NFT? And so like I think a lot of times with the creatives, they don't really know how to monetize what they do. And that's something that I really pride myself on. I'd be able to look back at things, pull back, and kind of see all aspects of it: the marketing, how to monetize your art, how to create art. That's kind of unique. And I find people like you very interesting because you're able to kind of step back from a process, right? And be able to dissect it and say, okay, this could use some work, this could use some work, and this could use some work. Let's investigate this a little bit. Let's investigate that. And that's super necessary for most people that are creating anything, whether that be a business or art. And so that's why I really wanted to get you on the show, to be able to talk to people about some of these things. So it's pretty I mean, everything that you're talking about, man, is exactly what I think a lot of people need to hear, especially that are trying to kind of navigate how to build something out. What's kind of some of the things that you plan to be working on, other than, I mean, I know you've got some things working currently, but is there any other projects that you're working on currently that you'd like to talk about?
I would say really that's the biggest one.
That's
Um,
where you're focusing your attention.
yeah, yeah, and just again, um, focusing on what is the game within the game for me.
Hmm.
And I have a couple of fun kind of like, who knows if it'll ever be anything besides something that I do for fun.
Yeah.
Like I'm looking at a masculine archetypal like card deck or deck,
Okay.
kinda. So like, the king, the lover, the warrior, the magician,
Hmm.
and a whole bunch of other different types of masculine archetypes. So I'm just exploring, like, if I created something like this, what would it
Hmm.
look like? Which was what I decide, the art of it, the organization of it, all that kind of stuff. So that's one
Uh-huh.
kind of thing that I'm just having fun with. And it's like, if I only make it for myself, as if I make one, like
One deck.
one deck and that's
One deck
it,
of cards.
like
I'll
that's
play it all the time.
that's it. Yeah, like, and
Yeah.
some of the fun ideas is like, I'm playing with, what if I imagined, finding this deck in like a sacred temple that is 200 years old, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
And the wisdom that's coming from it is, goes back to centuries before, right?
Right.
So like, how does that feel? What does that look like? So I'm having a lot of fun just kind of moving through that process. And then the other thing that is, just an absolute personal thing is
Sure.
just singing, right? So
Singing.
I have a
Wow.
list of
Okay.
songs that I'm, learning how to sing. And the concept is that the album is, finding my voice,
Okay.
and what I'm doing is like, I'm basically mimicking other people's songs and how they sing that song.
Hmm.
And through that process, I'll get better and better and better of singing it. And then eventually I'm going to find my own voice, and this is where a lot of people,
Okay.
they mimic or they sing like other people. And then eventually,
Hmm.
if they have the intention, they, they realize that their voice emerges, and it's like, oh, that's what I sound like when I sing.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of
That's
like a little
interesting.
journey that I'm, on. And, both of these are multiple year kind of endeavors. And so
Of
just
course. Yeah. Yeah.
having fun
Yeah.
with it. And yeah, so
It was pretty cool. I got to, I mean, this may seem a little, to some people, but I got to meet with the shaman in Mexico City, and they told me basically, you have two projects in your life. One is your passion project, and one is your project that you'll make a lot of money with. And I didn't, I like they, sometimes like they'll ask prodding questions. If you talk to different types of people, they'll be like, okay, tell me about this, and then they'll try to create a storyline or what. This was just off the cuff, and didn't tell him anything about business. I just said I was retiree, blah blah blah. And so he knew, like he knew that there was two different projects, and one was going to be for money, it would make me a lot of money, and the other one was going to be your passion project. And it blew me away. Like there's so many unknown things in this universe, right? And for so many years, yeah, and I'm sure you can relate to this. It was always, you know, try to think things through so far that you have a plan Z. You know, like you were never like scheduling for right now. Most never in the military. It was always 30, 60, 90, 180 days out. And so like it was a difficult change for me when I got out. I got out also in 2017. And it was a difficult change for me to kind of turn that part of my brain off and try to live for right now, and live in the present, to enjoy the people that I'm with in the present. And to I don't know, I was that something that you dealt with at all when because you got out at the exact same time I did. Was that something that you dealt with when you left the military, thinking too far into things or too far out?
Oh,
Was
for
that an
sure.
issue for you?
Yeah, I mean, and I'm still unraveling some of that on a certain level to
Hmm.
where it was my automatic response to plan for something. So
Hmm.
like I would receive the mission, the idea, whatever it
Yeah.
is, and automatically my mind would go to how do I plan this? How do I,
Right.
move through the logistics? How do I find the right timing for things? And so
Hmm.
like it'd be an automatic process because it was so ingrained, especially in the military. And
Yeah.
for anybody that isn't in the military, there's this acronym called PACE, and it
Hmm.
represents primary, alternative, contingency, and emergency. And
Hmm.
so basically, you have four plans for every aspect of the mission, and that kind of like thinking is like over planning. Like in the
Yep.
in the military environment, like that's absolutely needed because a lot of times you're going into hostile or uncertain situations, and the more
Hmm.
information that you can obtain about a place or a thing or whatever it is, then
Yeah.
the more chances of success and like being able to plan for how to respond whenever plan A doesn't work and plan B doesn't work. Like, okay,
Yep.
well, it's not about me following the perfect plan. It's about me now adapting to what I've planned or prepared.
Sure.
And so I've definitely had to unravel that automatic response. And so what's
Hmm.
helped me is really being able to like ask or become aware that if I'm automatically planning something, I'm like, oh wait a second. I stop myself because I'm aware that I'm
Yeah.
like planning a lot for this idea.
I'm
And
just thinking too far into this.
I
Yeah.
may not even
Exactly.
be it may not even be the real idea,
Uh-huh.
like, or to action anyway. And so I just take that pause and then I just like look at it. I'm like I'm observing, and really kind of going through a mindfulness practice of, I am not these thoughts of over, over planning,
Analyzing. Yeah,
and just
exactly.
and creating that pause or that space, like Viktor Frankl talks about, and then I usher in, I sneak in like a what if question.
Hmm.
And for me it's like, what if I plan this in a playful and open way, and then it was like, and then
Exactly.
I just kind of like let go and like, oh, okay, well, I probably wouldn't do this and this. I'll be like, well, I'd probably just kind of do that and then see what happens. Like it doesn't
Yeah.
feel as like, we talked about rigidity before. So,
Hmm.
so for me, that's how I've been really working through that process
Hmm.
of, over planning to playful planning in a sense.
Exactly. Yeah, no, I've been trying some exercises of my own. I think we talked a little bit about it the other day, but I'm studying gratitude, like the doors that are opened. It's not a specific book, but it's something that my uncle had talked about many, many years ago and kind of stuck with me for a long time. So even when I was in the military, and everybody was calling me sergeant and all this, and they had to do what I told them to. I always made a point to tell them thank you for doing it. And everybody be like, you know, why are you telling me thank you? I mean, because like you follow, I mean, as soldiers, we follow directions just because they're given to us from higher up. And so, but I would always make a point to try and tell everybody thank you. And then if they did something particularly good, I'd pull them aside and thank them more, like tell them what they did right, and or if they did something wrong, pull them aside. Well, one of the things that I'm trying to do with gratitude is make a habit of it, like we used to do the crawl, walk, run phase training. Crawl for me was just like starting the day with gratitude. So I'd start, and you helped me with this actually, not too many, I don't know how long ago, it was probably a while, but you were doing, you had created a mindfulness meditation recording, and most of it was thank you for this, thank you for that, and it kind of started my mind going back to that whole gratitude mindset that my uncle had talked about. And so every day my process is I wake up, I make the bed, I feed the pups, I walk around with them, not just throw food in front of them and start the next thing, but I walk around, I love them, give them scratches, tell them good morning, blah, blah, blah. I mean, you know, depending on how much you believe and how relevant that is, it doesn't matter to me. I believe that just the act of giving love to something is thankfulness to for them being there, for them being there at night, and or if I'm sick or I'm not feeling well. And then I go around and I just kind of look at the plants and check them, make sure they got water and things. It's like a habit, right? Creating a habit of just in my mind constantly thinking about the things that I'm thankful for. And it's totally changed the way that I look at things. And I've only been doing it now for about a month, but I've been writing the things down. And so I think that the muscle memory, we were always taught, if you do think like you were saying, the pace, and you would learn 4 different ways that mission could unfold, and how would you, and you practiced every single one of them, right, until your mind and your body functioned on how it should react in each one of those types of situations. So you were never going into it with one game plan, you were going into it. So I'm kind of approaching this kind of this mindset change, where I'm not using profanity as much. I mean, most of us in the military, we just can't help ourselves. I mean, we were around it so much and we used it so much that it was kind of a hard thing for me to stop, I guess. And so I've tried to stop doing that and just make like little changes, so that my brain thinks differently about things. And it's made a huge impact on my creativeness, and also looking for opportunities in life, and meeting different people that have come into my life, and I believe it's because of those actions. So it's very interesting. We're kind of on the same path. We're putting different words to it, but we're doing a lot of the similar things. And I'm wondering if that's just is it an awakening? We had talked a little bit. Are you meeting more people because you're in that mindset, or do you think more and more people are becoming aware of their kind of their sovereign self, like you said, like they can kind of write the rules? Do you feel like that's a change that's happening universally, or is that something a few people are going through?
I think a lot of people are going through it at different phases right now, especially.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of want to share something that's like for the nerds or the like engineers or the brainiacs that are listening, is that our conscious mind can process about 10 to 50 bits of information per second, and
Mm-hmm.
our subconscious can process anywhere from 50 million to a billion or plus, depending on the studies, which is so wildly lopsided.
Yeah.
So the idea though is to create a communion or a connection between the conscious and the subconscious,
Mm-hmm.
because like you were saying before, every day that we do something, whether it's a gratitude practice, whether it's other things that we're doing, we're communicating and almost investing in our subconscious to automatically do that behavior,
Right.
to create a pattern. And if we're more aware of the empowered patterns that we're creating for ourselves, and in some ways programming ourselves, we're
Hmm.
able to have gratitude as an automatic thing, you know? And
Right.
so I was talking about it before, like I'm unraveling some of the over planning, but I'm rewiring playful planning in a sense.
Right.
And so
Still using planning, but just changing the way that you look
yeah,
at it.
changing how I'm doing the planning, right? And
Hmm.
so anybody can do this. And this is like the universal process for any behavior, for any pattern, for anything that you want to do. Like, so if you're a person that creates in a hasty, uh, frustrated, and anxious way, like you're
Yeah.
programmed, you're conditioned, you're patterned to do that until you decide, you know what, I actually kind of want to be more lighthearted in
Hmm.
my creation process.
Right.
And but that's a whole journey, and that's, you know, part of the process of, you know, uh, sovereign creation is to understand that process and then gain our own individual sovereignty of choosing how I want to create. And is am I
Hmm.
have I been choosing to create in a stressful, anxious, fear-based
Environment.
way, or I'm doing this because I love my family and I want to provide for
Hmm.
them in a playful, prosperous way, you know, and so and then just kind of like
Yeah.
playing with that. So yeah, so when we're talking about, you know, behaviors and stuff, I like to bring that in because it kind of gives like the conscious mind, because we need some understanding of how we can trust the subconscious. And so
Yeah.
if we create that connection or that bridge, we're able to trust ourselves more, because we know that it may take weeks, it may even take months to rewire our behavior, but it's absolutely possible based on
Hmm.
our daily habits and you know, our,
Yeah.
in a sense, discipline, but really following those curiosities of like, okay, I'm really
Yeah.
curious about what would happen if I was just grateful every single day for 5 minutes. What would happen?
And that's really what stemmed it. I kind of got to a point, after going through some things that were pretty heavy, that I got tired of how I was feeling all the time, and so I'm just like, well, what if I just make an active effort? Yeah, I mean, it's just like with anything, I want a better body. There's a one of the guys in the community that I primarily interact with in Hedera, and he's made it a choice that he wants to lose weight, right? And I would say like the vast majority of people that say, okay, I'm going to lose weight, the vast majority of people don't lose weight, right? But what did he do? He goes every day, he posts proof of gym, right? And day number 10, day number 15, day number 50, day number 75, and he's lost weight, right? It's almost the act, right, of putting yourself in accountability, under accountability. And I think that that's where, like linking up with somebody like you, that you're not doing it in like a taskmaster type of accountability, but you're going, hey, we had talked about this the other day, and maybe in the course of your week you've forgotten to do these things. How are we doing on this tasking? How are we doing on this tasking? Because literally the guy has lost weight. I mean, and he's showing pictures every single day. So like creating like these habits, habit forming isn't always bad. It's not, creating routines is not boring. Routines is how you actually accomplish things, and the consistency of getting up every morning and making your bed, getting up every morning and doing the things that you've set your mind, I'm going to do this. That's why rich people that choose every single day to DCA into something, that's why they're the most successful, is because they have made a habit and a routine of moving towards something, and I love that. Um, Personally, I when I got out of the military, I was like, I don't want to have a routine. I want to live at the beach. I want to, I don't want to do anything. I don't want to have any timetables. I don't want to wake up in the morning for PT. I don't want to, do none of those things. And now, like, it's funny, I'm actually using what I learned now, changing it to actually accomplish things. And that's amazing. I think that, what you're saying there, totally, I can relate to it 100%. Um, how can people link up to? I want to kind of wrap up. I think we're pretty close to about a 30 minutes or 40 minutes on the meeting. So how can some people link up with you if they've seen this video and they want to try and, link up with you to have you help them bring their creation to reality, what are some links and some web pages? I'll be putting them in the description as well.
Yeah,
But
the main hub would be lanebelone.com, and we'll add a link in there. And then also
okay,
Sovereign Creation if they're interested in talking about projects and accountability. And there's a couple other things that I'm doing over there. And also social media. All my handles are at Increased Freedom. So you can
okay,
find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, or X. And
yeah,
and then yeah, so and then for people that are interested in a freebie, I have the Self Mastery Operating System available. We'll put that in the link down there. It's also on my website, lanebelone.com. And then I have a newsletter that comes out on Saturdays called The Distillation, and I share different types of ideas, uh, things that I'm curious about, all this kind of stuff.
sure,
And I really take it from a lot of interesting stuff to, distilling it into a really digestible message. And so,
yeah, that's
yeah,
awesome, brother. No, it's been great talking with you, and really enjoy the thread that you're in, that flow that you're in, and taking the creative way is just, once you start doing it, once you're living that way, it really is rewarding. Like, when you've created something, you look at, I did that, you see it from an idea to completion. It's hugely satisfying, and really builds up to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. So it's great being able to talk to you today about Sovereign Creations, and just letting other people get to know you. So thank you for coming on, man. I really, really appreciate it.
yeah, brother, man. Thank you so much for giving me this space to share some stuff and converse with you. So it's been great.